worldwide. We're also live on Facebook. So we want to thank you guys for tuning in. We realize you guys have choices, but you always choose us. So we're sincerely appreciative of that. Each week, as you know, I try to provide you with information to help your situation. This week is no different. I have a special guest in the building today to share her story, her amazing journey. She's not only an author, she is a survivor. So ladies, please put your hands together and welcome the one and only, the only one, Mrs. Kim Willis. Give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
It's good to be seen.
Yeah. Well, you're good on the eyes, so it's not a problem.
Thank you.
Not that, people who are not good on the eyes, it would be a problem.
I
just
understand.
saying,
I get it.
because people are so sensitive. They're like, what you mean?
Right.
So, Kim, thank you. You've got an amazing book out. Your book is called what?
Walk Through Fire.
Walk Through Fire. Walk Through Fire.
A survivor story.
A survivor story.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it a story of survival?
It's both.
It's both. So, okay, I just want to dive into it. It is a lot of people are diagnosed with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
There are different forms of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So take us to that moment when you were actually first diagnosed. Did you know that symptoms you were carrying?
No. So there's more than 15 different types of breast cancers alone.
Oh, wow.
The one I was diagnosed with is called invasive ductoma carcinoma. And the way how I found mine out was through a self-exam. Typically, women 40 and older are scheduled to get an annual mammogram unless you're considered high risk, meaning that you had a family member that may have had breast cancer or you have what is called the BRCA gene. Well, I had neither.
Uh-huh.
I don't have family history of breast cancer, and so it was through self-exams. So when you're 18, the OBGYN always says to make sure you do your exams every month, and I just decided to do it, and I felt the lump, and I was like, okay, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was different. I had lumps before, and I've seen about them before, and I remember a nurse told me a long time ago, she said, typically if your lump moves around, it's benign, but if it's stiff and hard, typically it's cancerous. So this time, it was stiff. And if you could have saw me, I was trying to move that thing just to see if it could move around, but it was stiff.
Wow.
But I didn't see about it right away.
Uh-huh.
That was the same month my grandmother had just passed away, which was in February of 2017.
So what was the time frame when you first, the self-analysis, what was the time frame between that and the moment of that time frame that your grandmother had passed? How much time had elapsed after you had noticed it through self-examination?
It was within days from the time she passed away, from my discovery what was going on. And I wasn't diagnosed until May. So from February to May, life got in the way. I was busy at work. And again, with the grandmother, it's easy to do. It's easy to do.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, though, that's, at most, that's 4 months, right? Okay, so we don't know. Okay, so from February to May, that time had, and then what happened? What made you actually go in to have it checked out?
Because in March and in April, it was still there.
Wow.
It didn't appear that it grew,
but
it was still there. And I said, you know what, I got to go see about this. I had that gut feeling that something was off. And I said, let me go see about it. And even when I went to my doctor to see about it, he didn't even think that it was cancerous, but he still sent me to get the mammogram anyway.
Wow. So was it painful, or did you just notice that it was there? It was
not painful at all. It was just a lump. That's the only symptom I had, was the lump.
Okay.
And for different survivors, it's different. Some is pain.
Yeah.
Some is fatigue.
Okay. I just said that so that we can rule out the fact that pain isn't necessarily an indication. Right. Okay, so it was stiff, and so you decided that, okay, it's time for me to take care of this and
Correct.
Go check that out. Okay, and from the moment that you had the test results done to the moment you received the results, I mean, what was the time frame for that?
2 days. 2 days. Well, I take that back. So I had the mammogram on a Monday.
Uh-huh.
I was called on a Wednesday to come see the doctor, so they knew on Wednesday. So that's where the 2 days come from, and I was diagnosed on the Friday.
Okay. Wow. So that moment, when they kind of like described the diagnosis, was there? Because some doctors will they will explain it to you, but did they explain it? Was there a lot of fear that you initially felt? How did you feel emotionally?
I was emotional the day the doctor called me. So I started preparing myself for the worst. So when they actually said the words, "You have breast cancer," I was okay. I was actually okay. It wasn't until he referred me over to the surgeon, and then they started making you do all these 20 million different tests.
Wow.
Is really when the anxiety and all of that started to come in. I mean, of course, I'm not happy that I had cancer, but I had a few days to kind of prepare myself to get ready for that news.
But still, it had to be.
But still, it sucks. You know, and my doctor who told me, which was my OBGYN, he assured me, he was like, you know, it seems like we caught it in the early stage. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm probably stage 0, stage 1. Yeah. I end up being stage 3.
Wow. So I'm just trying to develop a time frame, and I probably won't, but I'm just trying to develop because people out there who are walking around, they may have symptoms, and a lot of people probably don't have symptoms, right? But they're probably more than likely walking around,
right? And
they need to have it checked out. Yeah. So I was trying to establish a time frame. So between that time and then all of the tests that you had to take, I mean, what was that process like? I mean,
you know, once you're diagnosed with cancer, you're ready for it to get out of your body like yesterday. So to find out that my surgery wasn't going to be until July, which was 2 months after I got diagnosed, I was like, well, that just seems so long. You know, and I'm thinking about, okay, I was already waiting all the way in February. It's not like I just felt this lump, and who knows how long it could have been there before I actually felt it. You know, I was a little apprehensive, like, okay, are they going to be able to catch everything in time? And that was the hardest part, is the waiting game and doing all of those tests. So after you get diagnosed, they're literally shipping you off to do test after test after test. So Beaumont is like my second home. They're still my second home because I still go there quite often.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just now joining us, my special guest is Kimberly Willis. She is an author. She is a cancer survivor. So inside of a window of 6 months, you were diagnosed. You felt it, self-analysis. You were diagnosed, then you went in, and then they actually said, okay, all of these tests have to ensue. So, and the surgery was in July.
Correct.
Did the surgery go well the first time?
The surgery went well. However, my cancer spread, which is why I was diagnosed with stage 3. So when I finally met with the surgeon, they said I was stage 2A. And in breast cancer, so you hear the stage 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But breast cancer, they have A, B, and C in between those numbers as well, depending on the severity of how large your tumor and things like that. So I was diagnosed as stage 2A. And once I was on the operating table, she said if she found more cancer under my arm, because that's typically the first place that breast cancer survivors, where you have it in the breast tissue, goes there first, I would have to have chemo and radiation. So, and let me back up for a second. So prior to that, I had to make the decision if I wanted to have a lumpectomy, which means to only just take out the tissue where the cancer was, or to have a dual mastectomy and take off everything and have on, you know, a whole new fake set.
Right.
So, so I had to make that decision, and I decided to have a lumpectomy since I didn't have the gene. So after that, found out that it spread under my arm, and I had to end up having chemo and radiation. So I was 34 at the time I was diagnosed. So again, under 40. Wasn't expecting to have this happen to me. Now I have to have chemo. So really, to me, I feel like cancer, you know, cancer is one thing, but the treatment
Yeah.
to cure it and to make you whole again is really what's grueling.
Yeah. So, and I would think not only physically but mentally that
Absolutely.
it had to take it an emotion. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to, right at around 8:15, you guys can pick up the phone. If it goes that way, because we want to talk first a little bit more. We want to expand this conversation a little bit more because number one, there was no history of that in your family, right? And then after you found out that you indeed had it and it had spread, so you had to have the surgery. But while you were going through that, as we were talking, you said that your parents had developed it.
Yes. So I started chemo August 2017. Shortly after I started chemo, my father's bladder cancer came back. So he was a 5-year survivor, and his came back right after that. And again, like I said, the treatment of treating the cancer is so grueling. He didn't want to go through that again. And he had bladder cancer before, and he just didn't want to go through that again. So now, as I'm going through chemo, I have to start preparing myself to grieve because, he didn't want to know what stage he was in. So, I did my little detective work on Google and see what the prognosis is for someone with stage 4 bladder cancer, and I started to see he had those symptoms. So I knew I didn't have long. So right after he was diagnosed, and I finished chemo in January of 2018.
That's a lot to deal with.
It's
So
a
you're
lot.
going through your situation, and then you have to deal with your father's situation, who had determined that he wasn't going to go through that
Correct.
thing again.
So you got my grandmother passed in February.
Wow.
I get diagnosed with cancer myself, and then now my father is diagnosed. So it was a lot for just that year alone.
That's a lot to process.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, but it gets deeper.
Yeah, it does. January, I finished chemo,
Yeah.
and my mother calls me and says, Kimmy, the doctor found a mass in my lungs. I'm like, again? Like,
Wait. Your mom.
my mom.
So-
And that was hard. It's just, my body is physically weak. Mentally, I'm drained because I had to fight for my life. And again, like I said, I'm grieving my father. And then there's a possibility that my mom may have cancer. I can't explain that.
Ooh,
It was a lot.
that's a lot.
It was a lot.
And that's all within a 1-year time frame.
All within a 1-year time frame. And I wasn't even finished with my treatment because after chemo, I had to have another surgery. And then after my surgery, I had to have radiation. So I was still on the road of recovery while still dealing with all of this. And
How are you dealing with it? I mean, physically you're going through it, the therapy, but how are you dealing with it mentally?
really, my faith in God is what got me through.
Okay.
Without him, I really wouldn't have been able to. Yes.
Because, listen, I'm sorry, but there are times when that's all we have is our faith.
Yes.
It keeps us, it guides us, and it gives us the balance that we need to continue. So, to have that faith.
I had every reason to lose my mind. I had every reason to shut down. I had every reason to be suicidal.
Yeah.
But my faith in God kept my mind. It kept me to want to survive for my kids, to survive for my husband, to survive for my church family, and to survive for myself. And God forbid if he took my parents, which he did, I wanted to be able to survive for them.
Okay, yeah, I don't even want to give it up for that with the cheer, but so you did have to bury your parents.
Yes, so
Wh-
my
why-
mother was diagnosed with her cancer right after my father had passed away. So my father passed away in March of 2018, and literally like days later, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Ah, my God, Jesus. Let me ask you this, because a lot of stage 4, she was lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Did she smoke?
No. It's not a smoker.
Okay.
My father was a smoker,
Uh-huh.
so there may have been secondhand, but the doctor couldn't rule out if that was the case or not.
Okay. All right. So that's very important. But did she have symptoms prior to finding out?
Her symptoms was having a persistent cough.
Uh-huh.
So my mother's the type, if she gets a hangnail, she's going to the doctors to see about herself to be sure that she's okay. So she saw about it right away, but they would give her a Z-Pak, they would give her amoxicillin or any other drug to help suppress that. And once the medication finished, it resurfaced. So finally the primary was like, let's do an x-ray. And then that's when they noticed the mass on her lung.
Oh my God. Okay, so all of that's important because of the people who are watching, like the people who are going to watch. See, as you know, you probably don't want to know. A lot of people don't want to know,
right,
if they have something. But the majority of the people are walking around here with symptoms, and you don't realize what those symptoms are. Are there any symptoms that people can be aware of, or at least get an idea? If I think maybe that I might have something, are there any clear symptoms that people can have? Because what I'm finding out, Kim, is that the majority of, I gotta say it, the people that I know are finding out at such late stages.
Yeah.
So this show's built on providing information to help situations. So what are some of the symptoms, and what are some of the things that we can do for like early detection?
Got it.
I mean, just based on experience.
So before we go into the symptoms, the first thing is you have to know your body, and you have to listen to your body.
Okay.
Because we typically know how our body is, and we know if something is off. But sometimes we push off that offness to, maybe I was working too hard, instead of really keeping a close eye on it. So if you notice extreme fatigue, or if you notice pain or persistent cough that doesn't go away after a month or 2 months or 3 months, you really need to go see about it. And if your doctor is not doing the necessary tests, you need to be the advocate and push for those tests.
Okay, that's very important. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to be proactive.
Absolutely.
You need to be the advocate. Okay, so if you have, and this is just to help you guys, like if you have a persistent cough that's not going away, a month, 2 months in, it's still there, have it checked out.
Right.
So if there's a pain that's abnormal, that's an aberration to what you normally experience, have it checked out.
Secondly, know your family history.
Okay.
So I knew some of my family history, but it forced me once I had to go to genetics just to see, what diseases ran in my family. That's when I really knew the background of my family. So if you know there's a history of colon cancer, then guess what? You need to see about it early, because for like my daughter, she can't wait till she's 40 to have a mammogram.
Right. No.
She needs to go early.
Absolutely.
So if
Absolutely.
you don't know that runs in your family, you can be doing yourself a disservice by not going to see about it earlier.
Wow. This is so much information to unpack. It's just really hard because we're dealing with so many different things that are going on. Ladies and gentlemen, don't pick up the phone. Don't give us a call. Let's just because it's too much with the time that we have left that we have to get through. Okay, so I'm hearing the phone ring, but we're just going to try to deal with it. So now I know that you have a book, and inside your book you kind of chronicle, you document all of the things that you're talking about right now. What made you want to write this book? And this book is called, let me see. It is called Walk Through Fire.
Yes.
Okay, Walk Through Fire. What made you, outside of everything you went through, what prompted you to say, I want to share my experience and I want to write about it?
Well, first, I don't like to write. I went to school and I did my papers, but I have no desire to write. I have no desire to be an author. However, I wanted to have a journal. I started to start off as a journal just to kind of document everything that I went through.
Right.
Because sometimes, when you go through different trials and tribulations, that we have amnesia. Once we get over those things, we kind of forget how it was like. So I wanted to have something to remind myself of everything that I was going through and to appreciate the journey that I was going through. And as I was having a bad chemo day, I was on the couch, and I swear to you, the TV was on, and I woke up and there was a special on breast cancer. I had one Caucasian lady, one African-American lady, had 2 different types of breast cancer. And from there, I said, you know what? This wasn't given to me to be silent.
Right.
This was given to me to be able to bless others, because, again, it didn't make sense for me to have breast cancer. I'm under the age of 40, doesn't run in my family, and I don't have the genetic gene. I felt like this was my purpose, to be able to help encourage others, because, when when you're in your 30s, you're not thinking about cancer. You're thinking about your career.
Right.
You're thinking about children. You're thinking about everything else but that. And, you know, we may not be doing those self-checks. So I wanted to be an advocate for those to make sure that they're checking on themselves and going to see about themselves, not putting it off. And then if, God forbid, if something does happen, you're diagnosed with something, that you can actually make it.
Well, you know what? All those points are... those are great points. I don't think we're ever thinking about cancer. We as a people, as black people, we have just, I'm going to say in the last decade, we've seen an increase, a spike in cancer in African-American people. So I think that's now coming to the forefront in terms of that's one of the things that we really have to be certain about. Now we have to check out.
Yes.
Because back in the day, you know, a black person with cancer was just like something rare. You would see a black person with, cancer? What you messing with white people? You're like, what are you asking me? Yeah, so now it's come to the forefront. That's something that we as a community, we need to understand that affects us.
Absolutely.
In such a high number that I'm seeing such, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking this. Maybe it's the late stages because we're not detecting it early. I mean, I know that goes without saying, but maybe black people, maybe we need to get in there much, much earlier and check that out.
I think it's that, but then also I think the screenings are too late because there's starting to be studies that's out there for both breast cancer and colon cancer that we're more prone to get it in our early 30s, early to mid 30s. So we're African American women are high risk for breast cancer.
Wow.
Alone.
Okay.
And you know, breast cancer alone, it affects more than just women. It can affect men. And it can affect animals. I was just at a black tie gala, and the CEO of this organization, she said that a dog had breast cancer. If you got breast tissue, you can get breast cancer.
Yeah, but you know, you're absolutely right. I'm not even disputing that. I'm trying to figure out what that is because people don't know whether it's in our diet. People don't know. Are they able to trace that? Are they able to say this is because this is in your genes? Is it as simple as that, or is it in our diet?
Right. So, I mean, for some, it's in their genes and they have the genetics. But for others, and this funny thing with breast cancer, 80% of those women don't have the gene or it runs in their family.
80%?
80%. So, and in my support group, one of the ladies, she basically is a vegan, and she exercised all the time. She got both breast cancer and I believe it was kidney cancer as well. So you got someone who eats clean and who exercises and still gets cancer. So they can't pinpoint. They say to always eat healthy and to exercise, and those things does help, but have no idea where it's coming from. And that's what's scary.
That's very scary.
And the deeper question is, would you even really want to know what's causing it if it's something you can't prevent, like air, or if it's a certain food or
water?
Right.
Yeah, and that's deep. That's very deep. So the takeaway would be to get those checkups. So when you start to feel something abnormal about your body, or if you just feel like, listen, I'm at that age where I need to go and get checked up. I just went to the doctor's screening, and is an African-American doctor. He said, hey, man, you need to do this. I'm like, no, I'm really not. I took
it's uncomfortable, but yeah.
I took that approach. I'm like, I'm okay. You know, I've seen enough, and I've had 50 really, really good years. I'm like, so what? He said, man, that's ridiculous. He says,
that sounds like a colonoscopy checkup.
He said, I'm going to get you down for a deeper screening. We're going to do some labs. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I said, but you know, it'd be great to have you on the show. He's like, look, man.
Stop deflecting.
Right. So I said, I'll tell you what. I said, if you come on the show, I said, I'll go ahead and take the labs. He said, you got a deal. So hopefully he'll be on the show. But it's very, very important. Don't be stubborn like me is what that's the point. Don't be like me.
And now
Don't
I'm going to follow up on you too.
Exactly. And he's like, well, in 2 weeks we're going to go in for the first ones. But he's just like, you know, you look good for your age. But he says, I just want to be absolutely sure. And you need to always be sure. So Don't be like me, you guys. If you feel anything, go have that.
You said something interesting. You said looks.
Yeah.
People think that cancer looks a certain way. You know, people say, "Oh, you look good to have cancer." Like, oh, I'm supposed to look dead and decrepit.
Right.
No.
Cancer don't ride. It don't ride on your back and be like, "Yeah, we up, we right." So yeah, you're not just it's a different way of. I think psychologically, if you don't feel sick, then you don't know that you have something.
Correct.
And then if you don't feel sick, then why would you go have a checkup?
Right.
Right. So we got to crack that nut. We have to bridge that gap. Okay, so I think it's very, very important that not only no calls.
Okay.
I just decided to get some calls. Because this information is very important, and I want to make sure that people understand that. So now I'm gonna refer back here to if this works. Okay, Walk Through Fire. Okay, is that the website right there?
Yes.
Okay, guys, you want to know more information about this Walk Through Fire book? Go to this website right here. It's Kim Willis's book. She is an amazing author, as it turns out. She is a survivor, and you definitely need to go and check that book out. Go to this website right here, real quick. Write that down, or freeze the show, and then you guys can go back to the show and get that information. I put that on the screen because I think it's very, very important. It's vital for people to be able to go access that and learn more about your amazing journey. Because half hour isn't enough.
Right.
Because you had a lot to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot to deal with. So you wrote the book, and you have the book out. But now, how's your family dealing with it? Because you still have to. Your husband. I met your husband. He's a nice guy.
Thank you.
And you've got beautiful children, so you've got to live for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was rough. So my kids didn't know until after I finished chemo. We did that on purpose because, you know, it's a lot to deal with during the school year. My oldest two children at the time were 11 and 10. And that's a lot to deal with at the time. And once I came out, you know, then here goes my father passed, and then here goes my mother passed. So it was a lot for the older two to deal with. Sometimes their grades had suffered. You know, they were a little bit more reserved. So, you know, we just had to continue to stay in prayer with them and to talk it out as a family. You know, I always did self-checks to say, hey, how's everyone doing? Because it wasn't just me. You know, it was them as well. And,
Right.
But once I was able to be upfront with the kids about my cancer, it liberated me, because from there I was able to then show them my bald head, because I was wearing wigs, and I would beat my face with my eyelashes and eyebrows so they didn't see that all my hair was gone. So it kind of liberated me from that point. But that was a lot for them, a lot.
I can only imagine. But sharing that with your family and being open enough to share that with your family. And I think a lot of people aren't. You know what I'm saying? There's a fear there.
Yeah.
But that's a hurdle that you leap. And I think communication ongoing is very, very important.
Absolutely.
And constant checkups, right?
Yeah, constant checkups. And, you know, my kids are under the spotlight as well. My husband is a pastor at New Jerusalem Baptist Church.
Okay, say that one more time. Your husband's
New Jerusalem Baptist Church. Okay. He's a pastor there, the senior pastor there. And, you know, as the first family, you're already under the spotlight. You know?
I can only imagine.
So, and at the time that I felt my lump, he had just got called to that church. So, to go back to February, my grandmother just passed, found the lump, and then here my husband has now been called to pastor at this church. And
how does he handle this? Because the emotion has to be running high between him. I mean, there's a lot of emotion to balance out.
It is.
And then to have to go, not to have to go, but the strength to go and pastor.
Yeah, and to preach every Sunday.
Oh, my God.
And to at times be a single father, because physically I couldn't always be there for the kids because I was down, especially when I was going through chemo. My body was too worn down, and he had to take the kids out. Sometimes I couldn't do certain events. I didn't miss any Sunday service. I only missed our New Year's Eve service, but every single Sunday I was there. I pushed my way to go, and he encouraged me every single step of the way. He was a great support.
I love it. I got to give it up for that. Okay. We've got about 30 seconds. The takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, a phenomenal guest today. I appreciate you for being in the building. Kim Willis, she's got an amazing book out. It is called Walk Through Fire. It's right there. That's the website. Go check that out one final time for more information. It's called Walk Through Fire. You can't do this alone, right?
No, you can't.
What's the takeaway? What would you like for people to know? That's your what would you like for people to know, just in terms of prevention, in terms of moving forward?
See about yourself. Don't put it off. If you put it off, that's more aggressive treatment, so you don't want that. God forbid if you do have something that's wrong, just know that you can make it, you can survive, and you have a support system. If you don't have anyone at home, there are support groups out there that's able to support you, who know exactly your journey, so you don't have to do it alone.
Amazing, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much,
Thank
Kim.
you.
I really appreciate you. The name of the book, is called Walk Through Fire. This has been my very special guest on Real Talk with Skeeter Murray, and we'll see you next week. We love you. We appreciate you. Take care of yourself because people are counting on you, all right? All right. God bless. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.